Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to today's video. This episode will guide you through the issues of... This channel's regular broadcast is interrupted for a special coverage of the first appearance of Rogue in Avengers Annual 10, published by Marvel Comics in 1981. The Avengers, otherwise known as Earth's mightiest heroes, are an assembly of heroes who band together to protect planet Earth and its inhabitants, against both foes of Earth itself as well as extraterrestrial threats that no single hero can stand against. They started out when the mighty Asgardian Thor got tricked into fighting the Incredible Hulk due to a ploy of the trickster Loki, Thor's half-brother. Thor was helped by a team of the original members, Iron Man, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Eventually it became clear it was all Loki's trickery and the Hulk joined the Avengers. Not for long though, as he would soon leave the team. Other members soon joined, and the cast of active and reserve members grew rapidly over the years. At the time of this comic, the active members of the team are the former X-Men Beast, Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, Scarlet Witch and the Vision, Hawkeye, Jocasta and Wonder Man. Avengers Annual number 10. Welcome to San Francisco, America's gateway to the Pacific, home of the Golden Gate Bridge. Apart from it being a tourist attraction, sadly it has been chosen by many people over the years as the place to end their lives prematurely. But once in a while, someone gets pushed. In this case, it's a young blonde woman. Luckily, she never reaches the water, because Jessica Drew, the superhero known as Spider-Woman, is there to catch her and save her. Or at least she tries to. Relying on winds to glide on with the web-like wings under her arms, and carrying the extra weight, she plummets down into the water as the winds die down. In a desperate attempt, she turns her body towards the water, making sure it's she who catches the brunt of the impact. The water is ice cold, and she worries about the effect the temperature will have on the victim, whom she's carrying along with her through the water as she tries to make her way to the shore. It's quite the distance to the shore, either way, but Jessica Drew makes a valiant effort, and the thought of having to abandon the blonde-haired woman never enters her mind, regardless of how hard the struggle it will be. Once the sun comes up, Jessica is waiting for a lieutenant of the San Francisco Police Department to show up in the hospital she brought the blonde woman to. The lieutenant shows up in the lobby, where a young girl exits the hospital. Jessica tells the lieutenant that she's about to hear about the victim's status from the doctors, but it's somewhat disturbing news. The lieutenant herself has some news as well, as they were able to dig up some info about the woman thanks to the fingerprints they received. The doctor tells a worried Spider-Woman that the lady will live and that there's nothing physically wrong with her, but as far as she can tell, her mind is non-existent. It seems to function at the level of a newborn infant. She suggests to contact all the mental institutions in the area, because she suspects that's where she came from, but the lieutenant has to correct her. The fingerprints belong to Carol Susan Jane Danvers, a US Air Force major of high standing. Last known residence, however, was in Greenwich Village, New York, and she apparently went missing about 6 months ago. Apparently Carol had been stripped of all form of identification, even down to the labels in her clothes. Her assailant clearly wanted to make her as anonymous and as untraceable as possible. They will need all the help they can get to get into the woman's mind and to try and find out what happened to her. And Jessica knows just who to get into contact with to get this done. Back to New York, to the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, secretly the home of the mutant superheroes, the Uncanny X-Men. The youngest mutant named Kitty Pryde answers Jessica's phone call and she tells her she will get the professor for her. He's currently at the Danger Room, repairing the observation booth with Nightcrawler and Storm. Kitty uses her powers to phase through the walls of the booth to inform the professor, and Storm asks her who it is. Kitty tells Aurora it's Spider-Woman, and Kurt teleports inside of the Danger Room where Colossus and Wolverine, two other members of the X-Men, are tending to the machinery right there. A lot had been destroyed during a fight Kitty had with a demon inside a big part of the mansion, leaving a lot of chaos in its wake. Wolverine asks Kurt if he's sure everything will work again now as he's about to turn the power back on. They've been working on this since breakfast and Kurt is pretty sure it should all work again. He and Kitty checked everything 3 times over. Right before Kurt presses the buttons, the professor ends the call with Spider-Woman, agreeing that his special expertise could be of some help and he will see her in San Francisco this afternoon. The electronics short-circuit and there's a big explosion in the booth. Luckily, Kitty isn't hurt, but apparently it's back to the drawing board. Only Storm and Xavier travel to San Francisco and Xavier starts examining Carol. The lieutenant has been in contact with Carol's parents and they took the news of the daughter pretty hard. They also said that there might be some answers gotten from the Avengers and Ms. Marvel, which confuses the lieutenant a bit. Considering the kind of unusual case this is, the lieutenant welcomes any form of help. The professor reaches out telepathically to Spider-Woman, who is surprised by this. She did not know the professor to be a mutant, and he explains that he prefers to keep his abilities a secret, as much as he can, just like she does her secret identity of Jessica Drew. He tells Spider-Woman that Carol's mind seems to have been completely erased on the surface, even though there are some residual memories and personality traits buried deep within her subconscious mind. He thinks he can help her, given the proper time, effort and luck. He also tells Spider-Woman that her suspicions were right. Carol is, or was, a strong and courageous woman who fought hard to protect herself. Xavier's preliminary scan picked up a subconscious residual image of a woman. He believes this woman to have been her assailant, and she goes by the name of Rogue. Captain America, the living legend of World War II, has seen better days. He's being attacked and brutally beaten in Central Park, New York, by the exact same woman Carol Danvers had been last night. And with Rogue now having absorbed Ms. Marvel's powers, Captain America never really had a chance. Moreover, not only does Rogue possess Ms. Marvel's powers, but also her memories, resulting in her knowing what to expect in a fight with her teammate. She kisses the unconscious Captain on the lips, thereby making sure that she absorbs his powers as well. But this time around, unlike with Carol Danvers, she will make sure it won't be too long, because somehow the absorption of Carol's powers and memories turned out to be permanent. At that same time, not too far away, as a matter of fact pretty close by, Captain America's teammates the Avengers are having their weekly team meeting. The remaining members are having some chit-chat, while Jarvis the butler is pouring drinks and serving them food. Beast is wondering what their team leader is, since it's unlike him to not be there on time. At that exact moment, as if on cue, the seemingly lifeless body of Captain America is being thrown through one of the windows of the room they're all in. Some of the members immediately tend to him, while some of the other members rush out to see if they can find anyone responsible for this. At the headquarters of Stark International, we find Tony Stark who's working on his Iron Man armor, when the Avengers priority alarm goes off. He already had told the team's leader that he would not be present at today's scheduled meeting and they wouldn't call him unless things were deadly serious. The other members do not know Tony Stark is the one inside the Iron Man armor as their teammate, so he uses his high-tech machinery to make a projection of him wearing the suit as he answers the call. He soon finds out how serious the situation is exactly, as Jarvis informs him of the attack on Captain America. Iron Man will make sure that him and Dr. Blake will be there soon. The Vision returns and reports in, telling everyone that he searched the surroundings and Central Park, but he could not find anything suspicious. As Tony Stark puts on his armor and is getting ready to leave for the mansion, his assistant tells him he has a visitor. He then tells his assistant to cancel all his appointments but to send a visitor in, who is Janet Van Dyne, the former Avenger by the codename of the Wasp. When she enters, she's surprised to find Iron Man there, and not Tony Stark, but he tells her he had to rush out, as will he. He tells his former teammate that he's happy she's here, and that they could use both her and her husband the Yellow Jacket's help. He tells her that Captain America has been attacked and is seriously hurt right now. She asks him if he's doing okay, and tells him that of course they will help, as she reaches inside of her purse. Iron Man tells her that it's way too soon to tell anything about Captain America's current state, as Janet put some kind of device on the back of his armor. He asks her what she's doing, because he can't move anymore. Janet then tells him that this device renders all power systems completely dysfunctional, as he sees her change into a different person altogether right before his eyes. She mocks him as she tells him she is not Janet Van Dyne at all, but Mystique, the leader of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and Captain America's attacker is her accomplice. She contacts Rogue through a transmitter and tells her to proceed with the plan, and she also tells Iron Man that her friends will never know what hit them. At the same time, Jessica Drew, the Spider-Woman, arrives in New York at the Avengers mansion. She traveled back to New York City along with Storm on the X-Men's Blackbird, but they left Professor Xavier behind with Carol, to see what he can do for her. As she steps out of the taxi, she thinks about the current situation and what would be the proper approach to finding out the connection between Carol Danvers and the Avengers, which Carol's mother alluded to. She spots a woman in green running into the service alley of the mansion, and immediately recognizes her as the woman Professor X showed her a mental image of, the woman who he thinks attacked Carol. Behind the mansion, the Asgardian Avenger Thor arrives, landing and immediately changing into his alter ego of Dr. Donald Blake. He received the message from Tony Stark, and knows that if Tony mentioned the situation with Captain America being a dire one, it most likely is. He has fought side by side with Cap many a times, and knows that he is not one to easily get hurt this bad. At this moment in time, the Captain needs the physician Blake more than he needs his ally Thor. Once he is changed into Donald Blake, he gets struck from behind by Rogue. But as she takes off her glove, she herself is getting attacked from behind by Spider-Woman, who has been waiting to take revenge on Rogue for what she's done and tried to do to Carol. Spider-Woman's costume pretty much totally covers her body, much to Rogue's chagrin, since that way it won't be as easy to render her unconscious and steal her powers. She's able to push Spider-Woman off her, noticing how she hasn't been able to hit her due to her superhuman speed and agility. At the same time, Donald Blake is trying to reach his cane in order to be able to tap it against the ground, which would trigger his transformation back into Thor. Eventually he is able to do so and grabs a hold of Rogue, not realizing that by doing so he actually hands Rogue the chance to absorb his powers by touching his face and wrist. Spider-Woman sees this unfold and tries to stop it before the transfer of power has been completed. So she attacks Rogue with one of her Venom blasts, a bioelectric bolt shooting from her fingertips. But sadly, it has no effect whatsoever. The rest of the Avengers inside the mansion are coming outside after hearing all the noise and are surprised to see what's going on. They don't recognize the woman that's holding Thor, but the Vision does recognize Spider-Woman. Drawing instant conclusions from the state Thor is in and how close Rogue is standing to him, he thinks her to be the more evident threat and approaches Rogue and tries to deal with her first. With the Vision being an android instead of a human, and Rogue being aware of this, she knows she can't use her powers on him. She knows she will have to destroy him, and Mystique has told her exactly how he fights. She knows that he will try and use his density altering powers on her. So she uses Thor's body as some kind of shield between the two of them, which stops the Vision in his tracks, and then knocks him out, instantly, with one single punch. Next, Wonder Man, Simon Williams, attacks her. He flies straight into her, thinking that he would be able to get her away from Thor, or at least push her off balance. Not knowing she currently possesses the combined powers of Thor, Captain America and Ms. Marvel. Simon is shocked to hear that she also has the powers of Ms. Marvel, as Rogue grabs him by the throat. She touches his skin, trying to add his powers as well, but his skin isn't really skin. Simon is not a human either, as she notices by looking him in the eyes after she knocked off his sunglasses. Simon is a being of sentient energy, extremely powerful but just as useless to Rogue as the Vision was, and she deals with him about the same way, by throwing him away like garbage. Rogue realizes that her and Mystique miscalculated Rogue's chances, even though she thinks she could probably kill them all, but she doesn't want to risk what's at stake. If she fails, Mystique wouldn't be pleased at all, because right now she's needed somewhere else. So she retreats, sending out a clear warning that this will be settled at a later time. As she flies off, Hawkeye asks Spider-Woman what she's doing here, so Jessica starts explaining. During the evening, when things have settled down a bit, Jessica explains to some of the Avenger members what had happened to Carol, about how she seemingly vanished from New York for about 3 months, and then appeared again in San Francisco about 3 months ago, living a calm life, until last night, when she had been attacked and someone tried to kill her. She also tells them that she's working together with the San Francisco Police Department, and about their suspicion of Rogue being the assailant. Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, tells her that she had only been an Avenger for a relatively short time, and that she was probably closest to her, even though in retrospect she probably wasn't that close at all. Simon adds that she was a very private person, who was very self-reliant, often mistaken as an emotionless ice maiden. Wanda then continues telling Jessica about how they were walking on the beach and Carol suddenly collapsed. Somehow she was experiencing morning sickness, and appeared to have been 3 months pregnant, according to her biological clock. And then, in less than a week, she carried the baby to full term and gave birth to a son. And that son had grown to manhood in less than a day. As it turned out, the child she gave birth to was actually the son of Immortus, who had implanted his own essence inside of her, through some form of machinations, using Carol by seducing her to be able to escape Immortus' domain of limbo. In the end, Marcus was still connected to the dimension of limbo, and this created a disruption in the local time stream, causing the Earth to be flooded with dinosaurs, spaceships, and knights in armor and such. Marcus was building a machine in the meantime, which, as he said, would save the day, but no one really trusted him. Everything happened so fast and Hawkeye chose to destroy the machine, which resulted in Marcus not being able to stay on Earth, and he had to return to Limbo. And Carol, having fallen in love with Marcus and vice versa, joined him, and Thor helped create a dimensional rift between Earth and Limbo. And so they left, hopefully to live happily ever after. Apparently it didn't last for long, since Carol had returned back to Earth, without Marcus, which makes Spider-Woman ask the question, why didn't she contact the Avengers, still having her powers and whatnot? At that moment, Beast and Jocasta enter the room, and Spider-Woman asks how the pages are doing. He tells her that compared to the data she got on Carol's state, Cap and Thor seem to be doing a lot better. Their state seems to be temporary, but he has no idea how long it will last. He then asks about Iron Man, but there has been no response from him whatsoever. They will have to expect the worst. Rogue seems to perfectly know what she's doing, as she has taken out the strongest and most experienced members, and Jessica mentions that even if they are to find her, beating her will not be that easy at all. Beast tells her to take it one step at a time. They will have to find her first. Luckily, Ms. Marvel's hybrid alien Kree metabolism is easily traced, and Spider-Woman seems to know exactly where she's headed, and if she's right, their troubles have only just begun. At midnight, an aircraft arrives at Rikers Island, formerly a city jail but recently turned into a prison of the federal government, used for the incarceration of apprehended supervillains. One of such inmates is the blind woman Irene Adler, codenamed Destiny, a woman possessing the powers of precognition, but also a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and she tells her fellow inmates to be ready because deliverance is at hand. From the aircraft, Tony Stark, helplessly encased in his static armor, gets thrown towards the prison by Rogue. She aimed him straight at the main generator room, and the impact has the force of a small nuclear bomb. With the generator down, the massive energy fields which are being used to contain most of the supercriminals in their cells are disrupted, with devastating results. And before the reserve generators come online, 4 specific inmates who had been forewarned know how and when to use this attack for their own prison break. 2 of these are the mutants Destiny and her teammate Fred Dukes, also known as the Blob. Their 2 other incarcerated teammates are Avalanche and Pyro. Pyro helps to guide the blind Destiny, while Avalanche uses his ability to pave them a way through the prison, crumbling every solid object in their way, and moving them along as if he's creating an instant avalanche or tidal wave. Pyro asks Destiny if they will be able to pull this off, but she tells him that nothing in the future is certain until it happens. All she can do is perceive the many pathways to the future and determine which ones are most likely to happen, but she can't disregard the element of chance. Having arrived in the courtyard, the 4 of them are reunited with Mystique and their newest addition to the team, Rogue. Destiny, the Blob, Pyro and Avalanche had been taken to prison after their failed attempt to assassinate the Senator Robert Kelly. They had been defeated by the X-Men, but Mystique was able to escape. Destiny does tell them to hurry up, but Rogue already sees that it's too late, because the Avengers have arrived, and they've assembled to stop this attempt at a jailbreak and take revenge on Rogue and Mystique for their fallen teammates. They are here to make sure that this time around, all the members of the Brotherhood will be incarcerated. Avalanche is the first one to attack the Avengers, creating a tidal wave of concrete, knocking most of them off their feet and launching the Avengers Quinjet into the East River. Pyro launches the second attack, using his control over fire, which he releases from the blowtorches on his arms, and creates a firebird from it. He attacks the airborne Wonder Man and Spider-Woman at the same time. Wonder Man tells Spider-Woman to get away from there, and she says that she will try and find Iron Man, who should be somewhere in the prison. Destiny picks up on her plans and tells Mystique about it, warning her that it's dangerous for them if Spider-Woman is successful in rescuing Iron Man. His power could tip the scales in the Avengers' favor. Mystique is going to pursue Spider-Woman, and knows that she is the one who saved Ms. Marvel's life. Destiny tells her that she should not let her hatred for Carol get in the way of their success. They part ways and Mystique leaves the leadership of the team in Destiny's hands, as she transforms herself in the guise of Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. None of the Avengers see Mystique leave the scene, as they are all far too busy with trying to stay alive themselves. Destiny uses her powers to predict Wonder Man's movements and tells Pyro to change his attack, successfully as he strikes Wonder Man down, right into the hands of the Blob, who uses his full superhuman power to strike Wonder Man and hit him right through a building miles away. The rest of the Earthbound Avengers are trying to gather their bearings, as the Vision tends to his wife, the Scarlet Witch. Hawkeye voices his worries with how easily they're getting beaten, especially with them not having dealt with Rogue yet, who is by far their strongest member right now. Beast tells him not to worry though, because he likes a challenge and they have only just begun to fight. Hawkeye fires a smoke arrow to cover Beast's attack, but all this is seen beforehand by Destiny, who warns her teammates. Beast uses his extraordinary agility to not attack the Blob, as Destiny foretold, but he uses his position and body to jump over him and attack Pyro instead, knocking him on the back of his head and unconscious. Boastful of what he just did, the Beast gets asked by Destiny if he plays chess or no, because then he should know that sometimes you sacrifice a lesser piece to take a major one off the board. Point in case, him getting buried underneath a building which gets smashed to bits and pieces by Rogue. Destiny knew exactly where Beast would end up at and made sure to deal with him accordingly after his attack on Pyro. The Vision surprises the Blob by raising himself out of the ground right next to him, using his density altering powers. Next he starts to solidify his body with his arm stuck inside of the Blob's chest, which should hurt the Blob, and it does, but the Blob can handle more pain than the average human can, surprising the Vision and catching him off guard. And the more the Vision density returns to normal, it leaves him vulnerable to Rogue, who hits him hard from behind, leaving him malfunctioning on the ground. Hawkeye thinks to himself he could probably better retreat, but since it's not his style, he gets ready to fire another one of his arrows. Destiny warns Avalanche and tells him to make sure that he won't be able to. Avalanche uses his powers, but he's not in time, as Hawkeye is too fast with firing his arrow. It's what he calls a screamer arrow, and it releases a flash and sound that shocks anyone close by, overloading both optic nerves as eardrums. With Avalanche having released his barrage of mass on Hawkeye, it does sweep him off the ground though, making him lose his bow and arrows and burying him underneath the ground. Rogue tells Destiny that even though the Blob has been disabled by Hawkeye's attack, she's doing pretty alright, and Destiny tells her that she should go inside the prison to help Mystique out, stopping Spider-Woman. She says it's crucial that Iron Man must not be allowed to restore his armor to full capacity. Over in the main generator room, Spider-Woman has found Iron Man, still incapacitated, stuck in his powerless armor. She asks him if he's doing alright, and Tony tells her that apart from his armor and his pride, nothing has been damaged. He tells her that he's never found himself in a situation like this before. After all the years of him being an Avenger and having been in so many battles, it actually scares him to having been defeated so easily. Jessica asks what happened to him, and he tells her about the device on the back of his armor which Mystique planted on him. She tells him that she will try and get it off him, at which moment she is being warned by Mystique, posing as Nick Fury, that the device might be booby-trapped. Both Tony and Jessica are familiar with the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and consider him a friend. Tony whispers to Jessica that the person who attacked him, Mystique, appears to be a shape-changer and that Nick Fury is currently attending a NATO security conference in London, so that this person cannot be Nick Fury, and presumably is Mystique in disguise. Spider-Woman quickly jumps away from him, as Mystique starts firing her automatic rifle at the two of them. The bullets miss her and bounce off of Iron Man's armor. Mystique, even though Rogue had warned her about how fast she is is surprised to see how fast and agile Spider-Woman actually is, as she keeps on firing and emptying her M16 at them. Spider-Woman wonders if the way Mystique's appearance is right now is her true form, and she notices it resembles the way Nightcrawler of the X-Men looks, which makes her think about whether they are related or not. She fires one of her Venom blasts at Mystique, taking advantage of the fact that she has to reload her gun's ammunition. But as the smoke clears, she finds out she missed somehow, and there's no trace of Mystique. She decides to stay here and help Iron Man out instead of going after her. Outside of the building, Rogue approaches and sees Mystique running out, making it clear to her that Mystique was unsuccessful in taking out Spider-Woman and Iron Man. That's when she gets hit by a recharged Iron Man, who can't wait to exact his revenge on Rogue for mocking him while he was their prisoner, boasting about just how she dealt with and stole the powers of his friends and teammates. He hits her with full force and she feels it. But it's not enough. She strikes back and smashes him into the walls of the prison. The fact she felt his punch is making her realize she's starting to lose the powers of Thor and Captain America, making her wonder if the permanently acquired powers of Ms. Marvel will be enough to defeat all of the Avengers. Destiny tells Pyro and Avalanche that they must get this mission done quickly, because it relied on the element of surprise, and the longer it takes, the less of a chance of success they have. Pyro then tells her that he just needs a few more seconds to get his head back into it. Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, tells him that he will have all the time in the world when he is back in prison, as she unleashes her mutant probability altering powers. The magic she conjures has a chaotic effect, and anything can happen. In this case, the prison's old gas pipes underneath the ground rupture and explode, knocking Destiny unconscious. Rogue sees this happen from high above, while she's strangling Spider-Woman as she gets blasted by one of Iron Man's repulsor rays. Spider-Woman is able to twist herself free from Rogue's grip and she falls towards the ground, wondering if there's enough time to glide on the currents, but Iron Man's there to intercept her. She's telling Iron Man to focus on Rogue instead, because she can tell she's weakening, which she is. Rogue herself is wondering what to do, since she cannot absorb a lot of the remaining Avengers' powers, and the ones she can don't hold the raw power needed to defeat the rest. While she's lost in thought, she gets hailed by Mystique, who's leaving the scene in the aircraft they came here on. Rogue asks her what about the others who are bound to get captured. Mystique tells her that she and her will be too if they don't leave now. She gives her a choice: stay behind and get apprehended as well, or get on board and stay away from imprisonment, so she can help her teammates at a later time. Iron Man wonders how Mystique had been able to get her hands on technology, like the aircraft and the inhibitor module she had been using against them, and concludes that somehow she has knowledge and access to America's most sophisticated weaponry, probably through a shield. At that moment, Spider-Woman points out to him what's happening at the courtyard. What's unfolding there is that when Pyro took control of the fire from the explosion caused by the leaking gas from the mains, he wanted to turn his monstrous creation loose on the Avengers to burn them alive, but the Scarlet Witch let loose her own powers and cast not 1, 2 or 3, but 4 separate spells, pouring her heart and soul on them, desperately trying to stop Pyro without being sure of the result they would have. Reality starts to shatter and warp and is reformed again, as Wanda unleashes her full power on Pyro's fire monster, changing it from seemingly living fire to living stone. Iron Man then makes a choice to help out his teammate, instead of chasing after Mystique and Rogue aboard the aircraft. He fires his rays at the stone statue created by the Scarlet Witch and blasts it to pieces. Hawkeye deals with Pyro before he is able to conjure up another fire creature and knocks him out with one of his arrows. At the same time, Wonder Man has been able to make his way back from getting knocked halfway across New York by the Blob, and carrying a rooftop water tank with him. And the Beast tries to free himself from the rubble he was stuck under. But he gets lifted in the air again, because Avalanche isn't done yet. He tries to totally cover up Beast with rubble, but this time with smaller material, basically trying to drown Beast in solid matter. But once again, the Scarlet Witch is there, to use her hexing powers to alter reality's probabilities, resulting in the Beast falling down from his contraption right on top of Avalanche. The Blob doesn't like the way the situation is playing out and is about to stomp on the Vision as he's taunting the Avengers. But the Vision systems had come back online again, and he's able to decrease his density, and the Blob stomps on nothing but the ground. The Vision gets up and asks the Blob whether he will be able to do the same, as he blasts him with his thermoscopic eye blast. While he tells the blob that the blinding effects will only be temporary, he asks for Jocasta's assistance. The Vision then requests her to blast the ground beneath the blinded blob, and he asks Wanda to perform another spell on the rubble from Avalanche's attack. He knows she's weakened right now, from all the spells she's been conjuring, and Wanda knows that if he still asks her to do so, it must be for a really good reason. While the Vision and Jocasta are both blasting a hole in the ground, and with the Scarlet Witch altering the rubble structure, he then wants to ask Spider-Woman to rupture the water tower Wanda Man brought, but she's already blasting because she figured out what he had planned. She warns the beast to get out of the way, as a mixture of water and dust-like wreckage from the building fills up the hole in the ground with the blob still in it. Acting like as if it's quicksand, the blob sees no other way than to surrender. And thus ends the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants jailbreak attempt. Some weeks later, at the Professor Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, an Avengers quintet arrives. As the X-Men Carol and Jessica are lounging at the pool, Professor Xavier requests the X-Men and Jessica to join him back inside the mansion. The Avengers have been invited here to have a talk with their former teammate Carol Danvers. They have not talked ever since she left as Ms. Marvel with Marcus, and a talk is long overdue. Storm tells Carol that they will stay, if she feels she needs the support of her newfound friends. Carol declines though, as she feels this is something she has to do, by herself. Jessica asks her if she's sure about this, and tells her that she only needs to call out for her if she needs her support. There's an awkward silence as the Avengers gather around Carol. The tension is palpable and Carol almost breaks down as she panics. Beast tries to break the ice by simply saying hi and asking how she's doing. She responds by saying that she's doing better than expected, and that she'll never regain all of her memories, but that Xavier has helped her remember who she is, who and what she was. She now remembers her family, and she also remembers the Avengers. But she also remembers how and why she left them. It's all bits and pieces though, and she still has a long way to go. She eventually asks them to sit down and if they want something to drink. Hawkeye tells her she looks good and asks her what happened to Marcus, while calling them lovebirds, trying to make light of the whole situation. She then tells them that Marcus is dead. Cap is shocked to hear this, and Iron Man tells her that they're very sorry to hear that, and that they had hoped they'd be happy together as they seemed like a happy couple. He asks her if there's anything they can do to ease the pain, and that's when Carol actually does break down, spilling the drinks and asking them if they haven't done enough yet by causing the whole situation. Beast asks her what's wrong, and Carol apologizes for flipping out. Thor then tells her to not be ashamed since she has lost the one she loved. Carol then yells out no, and slaps Thor right in the face, yelling out that she didn't love Marcus, nor that she ever did. She asks them if they don't realize what happened months ago, what Marcus has done to her. Wonder Man suggests that maybe this visit was a mistake, but Hawkeye interrupts him, telling her that she had told them herself how she cared for Marcus and left of her own free will. She tells them that Marcus never left her any choice, and she then retells the full story, of how Marcus was a pathetic creature with the powers of a god, in the body of a man but with the emotional maturity of a child. In Limbo, he could do whatever he wanted. He used Carol as a means to escape once he got bored with the place. After his plan failed, he took her back with him, using Immortus' devices to bend her will. Even though he said he didn't want to, he still did. With just a subtle boost from the machines, he forced her to supposedly fall in love with him. He even admitted to it, and they were all there to witness it. They allowed it to happen. Later, when they had returned to Limbo, when he aged rapidly due to a miscalculation in his plans, in as little as a couple of days, before he even noticed, he had aged into an old and senile man. Not only did Carol's pregnancy and her giving birth to Marcus's body happen faster than normal, so did his aging. Within a week, he had reverted to dust. With him gone, Carol was no longer under his mind control, and she started learning about Immortus' machinery and secrets, allowing her to transport herself back home to Earth. Simon and Wanda ask her why she hadn't contacted the Avengers upon her return. With tears running down her face, she tells them she never wanted to see them ever again. She hated them, because when she needed them the most, they betrayed her. They let all this happen to her. Jessica is eavesdropping on the whole conversation as she wants to be there for Carol. She had heard the whole story before and was there when Xavier pulled those memories from her subconscious mind. She had never before witnessed such desolation on a human's face as she saw on Carol's, when she remembered what had happened to her. She was there to witness and experience it all the emotions, all of them. She just wants to be there for Carol now, and so does Xavier, but they have to let her do this by herself, no matter how strong the urge is to go downstairs. That's all they can do for her for now, as her friends. Carol continues retelling how it all felt to her, getting pregnant by an unknown source, going through the pregnancy literally overnight. Confused and terrified, shaken to the core as a hero, a person and as a woman. How she turned to the Avengers for help, but all she got was jokes. How the Wasp thought that it was great and the Beast wanting to play teddy bear for the baby. They were more busy with the baby than for caring for the supposed friend and teammate. They even welcomed Marcus and took everything he said at face value. No concerns whatsoever regarding Carol. And on top of that, they let her go to limbo with smiles on their faces. Their mistakes, but it was her who had to pay the price for those mistakes. And Carol's own mistake was trusting them. She now has to deal with all of that. Deal with all the trauma it caused her. Instead of wallowing in bitterness and self-pity, she has to come to terms with this. She is now left with partial memories of a ruined life and she has to build herself up again. She tells the Avengers that there has to be more to being heroes than simply defeating villains. They have a role and a purpose far greater than themselves. They have to set examples and lead the way. They are supposed to represent what they should be, what they dream of becoming, not what they currently are. She tells them they screwed up, and even though that's part of being a human being, what's also being human is about is learning from those mistakes, to grow and mature. She tells them that if they are able to do that, even if it's only by a little, then maybe everything she had to go through will have some kind of a positive meaning. It's up to them now. As she picks up the spoiled drinks from the ground, Beast asks her what she will do now herself. She tells him she will pick up the pieces of what's left of her life, start over again and survive. Something she is good at. Wanda tells her that she would give anything for this to never have happened to her. She says she and the whole team is sorry. Carol tells her she knows, as she wipes the tears from her face, and she tells her not to worry about her. She's going to be alright. As the Avengers are back on board of the Quinjet and are making their way home to the mansion in Manhattan, the Vision notices a great sadness in Wanda. She can't help but wonder about what if this had happened to her. They only tried to do good, but instead caused irreparable harm. Things will never be the same, for Carol or for them as a team, as Avengers. She feels vulnerable in ways she could never imagine. She failed a friend, and as much as that hurts, it hurts just as much as the fact that she's even capable of such failure. The Vision tries to comfort her by saying that they, as a team, as heroes, have learned a lot today. They will emerge from this stronger than before, more resilient. They have failed, acknowledged it, learned, and now must grow from it. They have been granted a second chance, just as Carol has. And the next time something like this will happen, if it ever will, they will be wiser than they were, and perhaps they will not fail like they have in the case of the woman named Carol Danvers. Thanks for watching this video, and I really hope you enjoyed it. You can help growing this channel by hitting the like button and by subscribing if you haven't already subscribed. This tells YouTube that the videos I'm making should be recommended to others and would be very much appreciated. See you next episode.